Hi class, great job this week, and as we wind down for the week, let's talk about writing hypothesis 1 to get ready for your future analysis. So first of all, what is a hypothesis? Just to review, it's a statement of a relationship or an effect that you think exists, and so it's a proposition that you make about what may be happening in the world. It should contain constructs or variables that you want to study and their proposed relationship. And in general, you don't want to cram too many variables into your hypothesis. And so you think about, one hypothesis, one analysis. And for the purposes of this course, you would have no more than 2 variables in your hypothesis 1. And then you want to state their proposed relationship between those 2 variables. And a hypothesis should be testable as basically the alternate hypothesis. And a null hypothesis would say the opposite of your alternate hypothesis. So your hypothesis 1 would be your alternate hypothesis. So here are some examples of hypotheses using the variables that we have in our dataset. So for example, those with mentors are more likely to have greater psychology career preparedness than those without mentors. Or psychology career preparedness will be higher among those working in research labs compared to those not working in research labs. Now do note that for both of these hypotheses, we are comparing 2 groups. Those that answered yes to that question versus no to that question for your independent variable, and comparing how they scored on psychology career preparedness. Or science self-efficacy is positively correlated with belongingness to STEM. Sometimes I might say associated with belongingness to STEM. And so these are 2 continuous variables that are related to one another. Or another example where we have 2 different continuous variables would be, say, belongingness to STEM will increase after using psychology pathways. And so in this case, you're comparing the pre-test and the post-test time points for belongingness to STEM. And those pre-test and post-test time points would sandwich the use of psychology pathways platform. And so when you get to your own hypothesis, you want to first recall what you chose as your independent and dependent variables. And if you have trouble remembering, then you can go ahead and go back to week 2, where you let me know which variables you wanted to study. And so that will give you your IV and DV. And then you would want to think about the relationship you would expect between your independent variable and dependent variable. And so just thinking about some scenarios, if your IV is categorical, then a question you may be asking is, would one group score higher or lower in your dependent variable than the other group? And so you're comparing those 2 groups on the dependent variable. Or if your IV is continuous, what will be the relationship between your independent variable and dependent variable? Would it be a positive association or a negative association? Basically, is it a direct association or an inverse association, positive correlation or negative correlation kind of a situation? If the IV you chose is actually the same construct as dependent variable, then you're thinking about change across time or difference between 2 different measurement occasions of the same construct. And so a question you may be asking is, what type of change would you expect between pre-test and post-test? And so you will want to think about, what relationship do I expect between my independent and dependent variables? And then write that out as your hypothesis. And so what you want to do, first of all, decide what your hypothesis 1 is. And then add your hypothesis 1 to your poster. And so let's take a look at that real quick, and I'll show you where to write down your hypothesis. So here we are in our trusty poster, and you might notice that there's a whole section devoted to hypotheses, and so we want to go there. Now let me just zoom in into that section, and right here, where it says insert hypothesis 1 is where you want to do exactly that. And so you can just remove the material in brackets, because those are just instructions. And I have copied and pasted in just a sample hypothesis that you've seen before. Those with mentors are more likely to have greater psychology career preparedness than those without mentors. So that was one example. It seems to have altered the formatting, and so I may wish to change the formatting so that hypothesis 2 eventually would have the same formatting, but you can ignore the content of hypothesis 2 for now, because you might remember that that's the one that's reserved for repeated measures ANOVA towards the end of our course. And so we're not going to touch hypothesis 2, just hypothesis 1. But you can add your hypothesis 1 right here, and you're good to go. And that's all. Have fun, and please feel free to reach out with any questions. Happy writing!